Hi, I'm Katie Duke, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. Listen, I used to think that I was my most stylish in my 20s, but honestly, style and confidence only get better with age. And that is why I love Figs. These scrubs are beautiful, comfortable, and they are built to last. They're not those boxy, scratchy uniforms that we all started out in. No, no, no. These fit perfectly. They feel amazing, and the quality is just wow! My favorite color? Burgundy. It's chic, it's timeless, and it's even the same color as my apartment, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I love adding custom embroidery to make my scrubs as personal as my style. And since I work in telehealth, my embroidered figs even double as my ID badge. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your scrubs. Get 15% off your first order at wearfigs.com with the code FIGSRX. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX for 15% off your first order.
You are listening to Hilary Topper on Air. And now, here's your host, Hilary Topper.
Welcome to Hilary Topper on Air, the show where we explore groundbreaking ideas and inspiring stories that are shaping the world. I'm your host, Hilary Topper, and today we have an amazing guest with us. His name is Dr. Paul D. Corona. Dr. Corona is a Southern California-based physician who's revolutionizing psychiatry and family medicine with his pioneering approach, mind and body healing. He's also the author of The Corona Protocol, a book that offers innovative solutions to some of society's biggest challenges. Dr. Corona, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to have me on.
So let's start with your journey. Give me a little background about yourself and also how you began your career in family medicine before transitioning to psychiatry, and also give us some insight as to why you made that shift.
So, I mean, I wanted to be a doctor my whole life. I think since the age of 5 or 6, one of my nicknames was Dr. Paul. So I kind of always knew, and growing up, and then once I got into med school, towards the end, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I liked OBGYN, I liked pediatrics, I liked medicine, adult medicine, I liked psychiatry. So I chose family practice because I thought, well, I don't know if I want to do just one thing. I think I want more of a mixture of things. So I chose family practice for that reason. I did a 3-year residency program in that in LA, and so I mean, so this is back in 1992 is when I started practice, and I really liked being a family doctor. But during the 90s, there's new medications started coming out that were really exciting and that were different than previous ones. And the one that, well, not to get too much into neurochemical stuff, but when Effexor XR came out in 1993, so this is after the 3 SSRIs, Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil. Effexor came out, which works on not only on serotonin but norepinephrine, and I started to see this change in my patients where their pain was going away and their headaches and their back pain and all these strange things started happening. Fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome started improving. So I knew that there was this neurochemical link between the body and the mind, and I had noticed this stress. When people are under stress, they started having more pain. I started seeing this connection, and so during the 90s, I started doing so much more and more of psychiatry and mental health that around the year 2000, when I had a big decision to make, because I was getting way too busy, and I was seeing that at the time that being a primary care doctor was not quite as exciting for me as doing what I do now. So I made a decision to just go full time into mental health care, and that was around the year 2000, and then 2002 is when I started thinking that what I've been discovering here is really not common knowledge. It's not really something that I'm reading about in the textbooks or journals. And I think simple fact is because being a family doctor, I was always focusing on the body and not the brain so much. In psychiatry, they focus on the brain but not the body. So I kind of, with my unique background, put two and two together, and then that's what led to my books called Healing the Mind and Body, and all about this because I knew that I had to do something, and so I didn't realize with my writing journey that it would go so long, 23 years now and six books later, but
Wow.
I wrote the three books over 12 years, and then I basically at the time that I thought, okay, I still don't see it here 12 years later. I still don't see anyone talking about what I'm discovering here. And then I thought I really need to teach. And so then I wrote two books as training manuals for doctors. Um, then I put them aside and I thought, well, I'm going to I'm going to work on those later. I have to write this book. So my newest book, The Corona Protocol, took me probably another 4 or 5 years to finish that. And that released last year. And then over the last year, I've been kind of working away at those fourth and fifth books, and now I finished them, and they're going to come out within the next month. And so yeah, so I'm really relieved that after 23 years and six books, I'm finally done writing because it's a lot of work. It's not fun at times, but thankfully I've gotten through it, and so that's kind of a brief summary. I know that probably went a little bit too long, but that's kind of.
No, it's perfect. No, I appreciate that. So let's go into your book.
Yeah.
So, your latest book is called The Corona Protocol, and it tackles some of society's most pressing issues, from addiction to bullying and even school shootings. What motivated you to write this book, and what do you hope readers will take away from it?
Well, with this book, I've always been a fiction fan my whole life. That's my favorite, reading fantasy novels, and I came after writing the five books, I thought, yeah, I really wanted to do something different, and I really wanted to tell stories. The full title is The Corona Protocol: A Scientifically Proven Medical Solution to Stop Addiction, Bullying, Homelessness, School Shootings, and Suicide, 30 Years in the Making. And so I basically tell 30 original short stories about people. A lot of them just fiction in my head, some of them based on real life patients. So I basically wanted to tell stories and then explain like the treatment of the person. And so that's why I wanted to just do a different book, not so much just the science of things, but also the real life results. And these are kind of results I see in the book that I write about. I see those things. I see these miraculous things happen all the time in my office.
Can you give us an example?
Well, I mean, there's so many things in the book. I talk about anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and every day in my office I see real life examples of what I've written about. And then so the first section is about depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, ADD. Second section is on PTSD, eating disorders, schizophrenia. Third section is interesting because I talk about personality disorders like narcissism, borderline personality, sociopaths, and psychopaths. And then in the fourth section, I talk about the subtitle subjects, and then sections 5 and 6, I talk about my journey, difficult times I've had, along the way, how I've gotten through those things. But yeah, but as far as examples, I mean, like the suicide case in my book, it's not a happy ending, but it's very real life because sometimes not everything always turns out right. And in her case, I don't want me if someone hasn't read the book yet, I don't want to ruin things. She basically kept going off her medications that were working for her, and myself and the psychologist were urging her to get back on them. And again, she did, and in the end, it didn't turn out well. And So
Bad.
that's an example basically of the real life of what happens when you're not serious about treatment of mental health issues.
Now, you talk about traditional psychiatric treatments that they've stagnated progress. What are ways your approach challenges these conventional methods?
So the conventional thinking, ever since SSRIs came out, after the kind of cruder previous medications, there's been this feeling in medicine, psychiatry, that SSRIs are first line for everybody. Now there's 8 of them. Um, that everyone should go on SSRI. I disagree. I don't think they're the best first line products. And the other thing that and so that's one thing that's really really important. You have to choose the right medication for the right person. The other myth out there is that it takes 4 to 6 to 8 weeks for this to work. That's nonsense. It's never been true. It takes maybe a week to 2 at the most to work with these medications. So that's one thing. So basically, my feeling is with psychiatry, it's very dull. Nothing ever changes. The textbooks never change. The recommendations never change. It's really kind of like a stagnant field. And I think that, partly is because psychiatrists don't understand the bigger picture of how to treat people in a more holistic way, by looking at the physical self, not just the mental self, and just the way they do things. I've really had to kind of learn on my own because I didn't really have a lot of guidance to go by of how to we call augmentation strategies, how to put medications together. And so a lot of my patients are on 2 to 3 medications, but the results are fantastic. And the other issue is that people have heard, well, you just have to deal with the side effects. So when you put it on SSRI, oh yeah, I feel my anxiety is better, but I feel flat, I feel dull, I have no sex drive anymore. So well, but you're feeling better, right? Yeah, okay, well, goodbye. So that's not where I want to do with I want my patients to be on medication that they feel great on with no significant side effects. And so so basically I've seen that in psychiatry, that just incomplete treatments, not getting people fully better, and being satisfied with unsatisfactory results.
I want to get back to the connection between emotional and physical well-being because you just talked about it. Can you define this connection a little bit more and why it's so critical in mental health treatment today?
Well, I think because patients really come to our office, and I started seeing this really early on in my practice, and even during training days. People come in the office because they're not feeling good, of course, but they're stressed. They have stress, and when I was in training, one of my attending physicians said, "Paul, half of what you're going to see in the office is stress related." So I really started looking at that and thinking about that with my patients I was seeing, and I thought, I think 50% is a low ball. I think it's more like 80, 90% that come in with these vague ailments, these body aches and pains that we can't figure out. And then we kind of slap a label on them like fibromyalgia and these gut issues like my nausea, I got cramping, I got bloating, so we'll just slap a label, that's IBS, that's irritable bowel syndrome. And so I think that this connection is very misunderstood, that stress affects the body in negative ways. So what do doctors do? They throw a Band-Aid on it. Here's a pain pill, here's an anti-inflammatory, here's a migraine medication. And not that those things don't help. There's a place for all these things, but not getting to the core of the problem and realizing that this is a stress related condition. Well, we'll check your see if it's an autoimmune issue. It's not. So when you get the blood test back and everything looks okay, then the doctor's scratching his or her head and thinking, well, I don't know what's doing this because all your blood tests are wrong. Well, they're looking at the wrong place. You can't see this on a film. You can't see this on the lab results. This is a neurological condition, and the neurological system goes everywhere in your body. So that's why these symptoms can go everywhere in your body, because that's where the nervous system is. So that's kind of where I started to really see this connection, how important it was, the fact that it wasn't being addressed by other doctors that I was seeing. And just, in my view, you got to treat the core of the problem, not just, I call it I call it the Band-Aid approach, throwing a Band-Aid at things and not really figuring out, well, what's causing the symptom to begin with? Why is the person not sleeping? Don't just throw a sleeping pill at the problem. Why are they not sleeping? Why do they have so much fatigue all day? And with labs, and they're not anemic, and their thyroid's normal. So why am I so tired all day? So I started really figuring out that, with the conventional method, they weren't the answer. We weren't getting the answers. And so I started really realizing that there's something underlying this, and that's really being ignored for the most part.
That's so interesting, and I'm wondering, do you feel or maybe see this in your practice that mental health issues are more prevalent today than they were, say, 30 years ago?
I think probably yes. I think this is not anything new. I think this has been going on since time began. But I think in previous generations, when people had stress or where they were depressed, what did they do? They drank, they smoked a lot, they drank, they self-medicated. And
Mhm.
then, and in recent generations, there's a lot more drugs and stuff available than alcohol, or nicotine. So I think a lot of people are self-medicating. But yeah, I think just a lot of people are under just a lot of stress. I think COVID made everything worse. Everything's been worse since then because it shook everybody's comfort level. And so, but yeah, I think it's getting worse because I think, there's a lot of people are under a lot of stress right now about the situation in the world.
Mhm.
And so, but I think like I said, when I take like a family history, which I always do, because we'll talk, if you want to talk about the reasons why this happened, we'll talk about that. But when you take a family history and realize, well, who else in your family had anxiety? Your mom, your dad, and you go, well, my dad was an alcoholic, so I don't think it was him. And then my mom was kind of a very nervous lady. And, so when you get family history and you realize, okay, well, these people had issues going on. And so that's what led me to realize that this is a genetic issue that's happening. That
Mm.
the main cause is genetics, also hormonal changes, stressors. There's other things that lead to this. I hope that answers your question. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, no, that was really interesting, and
Yeah.
I wanna switch gears for a moment and talk about your show, The Dr. Paul Show, which is now available on Roku, Amazon Fire, and YouTube. What inspired you to start this show, and what kinda topics do you cover?
So we are. So when after my recent book came out last year, a patient of mine knew a woman who was the head of a TV network, sent her my book, and then she and her crew read it, and she scheduled a Zoom meeting with me. And she said, "Well, I'm fascinated by your book and your history, and I've read about you, and would you be interested in your own TV show, like a reality show?" And she said, "We don't have anything like that on our network, and there's nothing like it out there. There's no other show like it." And so I absolutely said yes because I want to market. I want to market myself because I want to teach. I want to I do a lot more than I've been doing. So basically, the base of the show is talking to my patients. So what I do is I pick really interesting patients of mine who are willing to come on camera and tell their stories, which is not always easy to find people that are willing to do that and spill their guts and talk about their history, what led them to seeing me. So I basically sit with them and it's just a back and forth interview and so they're usually each show is about a half hour. I also interview people. I've interviewed a couple of psychologists. I've interviewed, I've interviewed people who are experts on psilocybin, mushrooms, even an expert on THC, marijuana, just because I want the show to be, I don't want just be it to be bland. I want, to talk to people who have different ways of looking at things. And there's a lot of short little videos we put together where I talk about different subjects. Yeah, so now we're in our fourth season. Toward the end of our fourth season, we released over 50 episodes already. We've had, about 7 million views on Roku worldwide. We've had over 100,000 views on YouTube already.
Wow.
And so we're just kind of, it's just growing. On YouTube, we're growing like over 5,000 new views a week at this point. So it's really exciting because it's, I really love the show's been really fun to do. It's work, because a lot of filming
Oh,
involved.
yeah.
But again, my mission in my practice is I really want to not only teach doctors, but I really want to get out there and I want to kind of reach people and patients and so many people have talked to me and called me about, I really love your show. It really inspired me. I can see myself in that person because I have a similar background. So I love the when I hear from people about how the show's impacting them, and there's nothing else. There's no other show out there like this, and so it's nice that it's unique. But yeah, and I think, like I said, between my books and the show, I'm really hoping to get out there and talk about this more to patients, to doctors. I mean, I want to do some traveling and yeah. So the show's been really good. And if you want to find it, well, going back to my book, it's also now on Audible. If you want to get my book, audiobook. But the show is if you want to find it on YouTube, you have to put it the Dr. Paul Show, but you have to put the Dr. Paul Show, all lowercase, all stuck together, no spacing, no period. So THEDRPAULSHOW. So because a lot of people are trying to find it, they can't figure out how to find it. You have to enter it just like that way in order to find it. But yeah, but I urge people to join and see the show and try to, and hopefully you enjoy it and get something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question about the current healthcare system. If you could change one thing with the current healthcare system, what would that be?
Doctors need to listen to their patients. I think that there's a real lack of that. Doctors they love to talk, but they're not great listeners. So they like to show people how smart they are, and that, oh, here's what you do, and versus just, you have to. Well, I say this in one of my books that, if you listen to your patients. If you listen to your patients long enough, they'll eventually tell you what's wrong with them. But I think the number one is just, making people feel comfortable. If people don't feel comfortable with a doctor because they're rushed through the visit, they don't feel that they're heard, they're going to go elsewhere. And, the other trick I've had is that, you have to provide good customer service. How many people get frustrated with their doctor's offices? Oh, I can't get in for I don't know how long, and the doctor spent 5 minutes with me, and just bad, the rude staff, whatever. And I've made it a point my whole career I return every phone call same day, every email same day. I'm always available, even in between visits. Like, for example, here's one thing I've always done. About a week or so after the first visit, I call the patient to check up on them. Or I tell the people, call me next week and let me know how the first week goes. I can tell by the first week of treatment if it's going the right direction, or if they're just getting side effects and no benefits. I stop it, try something different. So you have to be willing to meet your patients and understand that they're suffering. They're at your office for a reason, and don't just blow them off. And just, I mean, if people go to a grocery store they don't like, or a hairdresser they don't like, they're going to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
So why is it accepted that in medicine is different? Like, oh, well, we're so important that we're in a different category. You can't. No, we're not. We're there to provide a service. And if we're not giving good service, if we're not, listening to our patients well enough, they're going to go elsewhere. And you got to remember, in this field I'm in, if you lose a patient, for example, if you put them on the wrong thing, don't follow up with them correctly, they're either going to stop treatment or go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And so this could be a patient that's lost forever to treatment. They might
Mm.
say, well, I don't like the medication. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to suffer. No, if it's not the right medication, there's others. If you don't feel good on that one, that means it's not the right one. That's all. You have to, so. But yeah, when you lose a patient like that, we're talking about the rest of their life suffering. Or if they go somewhere else, another doctor doesn't know what they're doing. then they get frustrated. And then if they say, okay, wait 4 to 6 to 8 weeks to work, well, they're not, people say a week or two into it, I don't know, I don't feel anything. So, you have to, in this field of medicine, I think more than any other, is we need to be aggressive in a safe and effective way. We need to be aggressive. We need to take this seriously. And so that's basically the main thing I would change.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And it's so true. Now, let me ask you, do you work with people outside of the state of California? How does that work? Do you do virtual visits and that
Right.
type of thing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, there's certain states with certain rules that I mean, it's certain states that you can't send like a controlled substance prescription or but yeah, but I have a lot of patients from around the country. I think that they either discover me through someone they know, giving a referral, or they see the show, or they've been exposed to one of my books. I'm on social media, so a lot of people are finding me because my social media is doing really well, and mainly Instagram and TikTok. And so I think that's how like people find me, and a lot of people think, well, he's over in another state. There's no way I could treat me. But I tell people, yeah, call me. If you need help, or if you're getting frustrated. I mean, if you can find good care, great. Wonderful. That's what matters. But if you're frustrated because your doctor's not listening, or your doctor doesn't really frankly know what to do, and it's not always that psychiatry knows. I mean, you better bet if you don't know a family doctor or a GP, okay, well, maybe a psychiatrist will do better. They usually will have better results, no question. But not always, because sometimes psychiatry misses things, and they have the same issues that the other doctors have. They don't listen a lot. They're not always that great with medications because they've kind of going by the old model, which I think is tired and needs to change. So
All right. So on that vein, tell us how people can get in touch with you and learn more about your services and your books and your shows and all that.
So my first three books, Healing the Mind and Body, the trilogy is on Amazon. My newest book, Corona Protocol, is on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and Walmart. And again, like I said, it's also on Audible, available audiobook. The show I told you about. So my contact is my website. There's a lot on my website, my background, my training, testimonials, blogs. So it's www.doctor, so DR for doctor, DR Paul Corona, MD for medical doctor.com. So again, Dr. Paul Corona, MD. So that has everything on there, including a link to my books, a link to my show.
Perfect.
And so that's probably the best way. My phone number is 949-481-0118 if someone wants to just call my office directly and talk to Leslie. And so but that's mostly my contact info.
Terrific.
Also
Well,
Inst-
yeah.
Instagram and TikTok too, if you want to follow me on there, on those two.
So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Corona, and sharing your incredible insights and expertise with us today. To our listeners, don't forget to check out the Corona Protocol and tune into the Dr. Paul Show on YouTube. Until next time, we'll see you. Thank you so much for being on the show. This show was produced by Hilary Topper and sponsored by the Russo Law Group, Long Island's signature elder law, estate planning, and special needs law firm. For more information, visit vjrussolaw.com. And PlayTry, your multi-sport specialist for all your triathlon needs. They have so many opportunities, including franchising. If you love the sport of triathlon, check out playtry.com and learn more about opportunities, or if you want to shop there, check them out. They've got great prices and they've got amazing customer service.
Life doesn't pause when you're sick. Vaccines against respiratory illnesses can help protect you and give you more playtime with your best friend. Depending on age and health status, vaccinations for flu, COVID-19, RSV, or pneumococcal infection may be recommended. Vaccines can help keep you from having a rough time. Learn more at cveep.org/vaccines-protect. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and CVEEP, fighting infectious respiratory disease.